Hey everybody, welcome to Law and Society. Please subscribe. Today we're going to talk about the abject arrogance and incompetence of Donald Trump's cabinet. And we're going to talk about the Signal chat and the second Atlantic article that published the whole chat with some light redactions. We'll also talk about uh, the courts and how the courts are still holding the line, and now it has gone up to the appeals courts with some of the cases that include probationary workers and also the Alien Enemies Act, through which there were the deportations to El Salvador. And then I'll talk about a few other things that I felt like it would be relevant for us to know and also see where we are in this, this misadventure into the dystopia that is Magatopia. You know, so the second article by Mr. Goldberg pretty much lays out the whole chat with the redaction of the name of the identity of the CIA officer in question, because Mr. Goldberg still thinks that that would be a breach of national security, or at least the safety of this officer. So we saw from the chat that there was this coordination and talk happening over a few days, and then about the attack on the day, that talked about the weapons being used, that talked about the plane being used, that talked about the time when the planes would take off, and then the time when the attacks would happen. And then after the attacks happened and after it was a successful mission, there was sort of, a hurrah from everybody in the chat group. And you are appalled by it, because you're like, no, these are battle plans. These are war plans. This is information that nobody other than a handful of people should know. And here we have Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, who was invited into this chat by the National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz. When you are in a position of power, you need to start taking responsibility for your actions. And if you can't take responsibility for your actions, you don't deserve to be in that position of power. Because all those positions come with enormous responsibility, and this security breach is quite obviously irresponsible. And I'm still stuck on the timings, and that sort of blurb sort of flashes in front of me. And then there's that part about denigrating Europe and how Europe is pathetic and how they are freeloaders. And then this touting of, oh yeah, only Americans can do this, all of that. And then the whole time, you see in the chat that Mike Walls is the one who convened the chat. You see that Pete Hegseth's account is the one that's giving these Defense Department details to the people in the Signal chat. And you see that Mike Walls is the one who invited Jeffrey Goldberg into the chat. So all of that information is screenshot and it's part of the article. And you put them all together and you wonder why they invited Jeffrey Goldberg. And it falls on Mike Walls because he is the National Security Advisor, and also he's the one who invited Mr. Goldberg into the Signal chat to begin with. Now, Donald Trump has already thrown Mike Waltz under the bus, saying that Waltz is the one responsible. So the question next comes whether he will be fired or will he resign. And this investigation is going to keep on happening. And this is there's a case that has gone into uh, uh, now to Judge Boasberg's court, American Oversight versus Hegseth, that is about the signal chat, and that is about the state secrets element of the signal chat. And this is sort of ironic and poetic in a way, where Judge Boasberg, Chief Judge Boasberg, is the judge who is dealing with the government that is stonewalling the judge because of state secrets that they allege are part of the records in the deportation of the people to Venezuela. So that Venezuelan case where the government is stonewalling and saying that we're not going to release state secrets in this court, well, fate would have it, and this is random, Judge Boasberg ends up getting the case that is now going to be litigated on this signal chat and how that compromise has harmed the United States, and to what extent our government is compromised because of Pete Hegseth and Mike Waltz's illegal and reckless, careless, and incompetent actions. So, Tulsi Gabbard's going to be in more than one hearing from now, because, she keeps on playing the I don't recall game. And at this time, if you asked her what her name is, Tulsi would say, I don't recall. Because I don't recall is one of those things in politics that people use to get out of accountability in a situation exactly like we are in with the Signal Chat scandal. And this is big. This is a breach of our national security. And I would hope that there are GOP senators and GOP members of Congress who take national security seriously enough to move with investigations and then make recommendations to Congress as to whether everybody who was on that chat needs to be impeached and removed or not. Or at least Hegseth and Mike Waltz, if they are not fired or if they don't resign. So that's me talking about the Atlantic article and how we are at this intersection of Signal Chat, which is a commercially available app on phones, and state secrets. And it's only been 2 months and a week since Donald Trump has taken office. We're counting days here. On the judicial side, not too long ago, maybe a few hours ago, the news came out that the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals will not clear the way for the mass firing of probationary employees at 6 key federal departments. So it's going to leave in place the leave in place a lower court's order reinstating the terminated workers. And then that was the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And then the DC Circuit Court of Appeals upheld the temporary restraining order on the Alien Enemies Act deportations, writing that an invasion is a military affair, not one of migration. So these are 2 wins for our Constitution and for our, for the rights of these workers, and also for the rights of the people who have been illegally removed from the United States and not provided due process, and is now being subjected to what I would see would be cruel and unusual punishment. They were under the jurisdiction of the United States, And as far as the court is concerned, until there is due process, they should remain under the jurisdiction of the United States. And therefore, the upholding of the temporary restraining order to stop the government from deporting people to this prison. By the way, Kristi Noem visited this prison in San Salvador, and she stood in front of this jail cell where these people who have been deported are packed in like sardines in a can. And she said that, we have this prison as a tool if you try to come into our country illegally. Okay? That is a photo op. That is heinous. That's just exactly what you would expect Kristi Noem to be able to do. Come on. She shot a puppy in the head. Then there's talking, and then you have the Vances going to Greenland right now. Greenland made a statement that, or was it Denmark, that they don't want to have this delegation go there. So there's this, and then there's this nugget of news that in Canada, they're not providing rebates for Teslas anymore. The electric vehicle rebate. So we're seeing sort of a moving away from what normally needs to happen with our government to we're seeing how our government is compromised and nobody's going to take responsibility for it. They're going to be arrogant and incompetent instead. And we're seeing the courts check that arrogance and incompetence that comes with Donald Trump's executive orders. He keeps on drafting these executive orders, but when you ask him about the 4 U.S. troops that died in Lithuania that came to the news today, he didn't know, and he was completely clueless about that happening. So he can sit there and he can vilify people. He can sit there and he can talk about, just talk ill about other people and lie about our country, lie about what's happening in our country on social media. And he can, but he can't, he doesn't have the information from his staff that 4 Americans have died. Like, that's not responsible. And, their answer is, I don't recall, and I haven't heard anything about it. Or you pass it on to somebody else, like Mike Waltz, not taking responsibility for their actions. And the latest thing, and I will end with this, the election executive order that talked about doing away with mail-in ballots, and then also there was another provision in it. It was no more mail-in ballots. Oh, and then you have to prove your citizenship at the site of where you are voting into an executive order. Well, the executive order directly contravenes the Constitution, Article 1, which talks about the fact that Congress and the states primarily, and then Congress has a responsibility when it comes to elections. So this is not within Donald Trump's core executive powers, nor is it in the sphere of the powers, the outer perimeters of the powers that Trump v. USA talks about. This power of how elections are to be administered is explicitly given and vested upon the states and then Congress. So this is not an official act. And the executive order is not worth the paper it is written on. With this update, I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for sharing. I want to thank you all for your comments, and I want to thank you for coming back to support me. I have a limited amount of people who come on a regular basis, and I am really happy when I see you all on the feed. And now that I'm not live streaming, because I want to keep on doing this on black and white, because we are in a dark time right now and we are going back in time, I'm able to also chat with you when you are watching my videos. So please do participate in the chat, and I will talk to you soon. Take care, everybody. Like and subscribe and share.